Well, good morning or afternoon or evening. I thought I'd do something a little bit different today, and that is talk about a guitar that I own. I own a couple of guitars, well, more than a couple, I guess 6 or 7. None of them are very special except for my beat up old Laravel. That's, I guess you'd call that semi-special. But other than that, I just have cheap guitars that you'd get at any music store for less than 500 bucks, and a couple that I kind of put together from parts with the help of friends. But there's one guitar that is unique, and that is this guitar. And this guitar is pretty special to me. It's a Teisco. When I was a kid, I said Teisco, spelled Teisco. It's a Japanese guitar. And it was my, not my very first guitar, but my second guitar. My first guitar was a very cheap and almost unplayable guitar I bought from my friend's uncle Jim. That was a Saturn, and that quickly became a bit of a bonfire in one of our first big concerts at the Manitowoc Arena. But this was the first kind of quote-unquote good guitar that I owned. Now, it's not actually this guitar. This guitar took me a long time to acquire, but it is more or less the same shape and size and brand as my first Teisco, which I bought in, I guess, about 1978 or 9 from a kid in Manitowoc. I paid $90 for it, and you know, when I first got that guitar, it was not terribly appealing to me. I mean, I was very excited to have a decent electric guitar, but at that time, the guitar that I wanted was either Ace Frehley's Cherry Sunburst Les Paul or Angus Young's Black SG. And so this blue, weird-looking guitar was you know, it wasn't my dream guitar, so I wasn't exactly taken with it. And the thing is about these guitars is they weren't really great guitars. They later came to have, you know, a bit of a following amongst guitar nerds who like this kind of cheap, you know, import product. But for me, it just wasn't what I was looking for. So, of course, immediately I stripped all the paint off it, and I painted it red, and I put a big skull on the back, and basically destroyed it. Pulled all the electronics out, got myself a DiMarzio Super Distortion, which was the pickup du jour in the late 70s. That's the one that everybody had to have. And I kind of made a new pick guard out of plywood, and you know, and then I did some more crazy stuff to it. I remember the last thing that happened to it was I took the neck off, I carved a slot here, put the neck on the other side, so it kind of looked like this, you know, a backwards guitar, really, with these things pointing back and the neck coming out here. And surprisingly, it worked and stayed in tune. And I had that guitar for a little while, and then eventually it was just taken apart and forgotten. But I always kind of wished that I had held on to it. And so I would, you know, occasionally look on eBay or stop by a pawn shop to see if there was the Teisco. Sometimes it was called the K4L. You know, every once in a while I'd see one, but they were always too expensive. You know, these guitars very quickly went up in price as they became collectible, you know, now they're one in good shape is well over $1,000. But what I decided to do was just try to see if I could find the parts separately and put it together myself. So the first thing I got was this neck, and it was just the neck. Didn't have any machine heads. The frets were worn down to just about nothing. This neck actually is the proud owner of my one and only refret that I did myself. I did a pretty miserable job, but you know, it works. And then I found the body on eBay, again, for next to nothing. It was red and very beat up, but the neck fit the body, and so I was on my way. Now, the original pick plate was brushed nickel, a very, very beautiful pick plate, and it had these 4 crazy-looking pickups and all kinds of switches, which, as a kid, I never really knew what any of it did. So those would come up eventually, but they were just too expensive. People, want ridiculous amounts of money for these Teisco pickups, and I don't know why. They're terrible pickups. They sound like crap, and they just feed back like crazy. But so what I did is I found a guy in the U.S. who makes custom pick plates, and I cut the shape out of paper and drew where I wanted the pickups and the volume and tone and this switch, and I sent that to him, and I picked a material, and he sent me back this beautiful pick plate which fit absolutely perfectly. And then I got these pickups are actually, they look kind of cheesy and cheap, but they're reproductions of this lipstick tube style pickup. But they're actually really good pickups, so they sound great. So I've got the best of both worlds. I've got the Teisco. I actually and this is a spray paint job I did with Beauty Tone paint. You can see it's actually starting to come off here. This is just off of some other cheap guitar, but it looks pretty much like the original. And I just had a box of machine heads that I could screw on there, so that worked. And the only other thing I had to pay big bucks for was the original Teisco bridge here, which is a very unusual bridge. It's kind of like a Gibson bridge in that you can adjust each string for intonation, so you can intonate it pretty well. And now this guitar is interesting too because it has been reproduced a couple of times. I think the Teisco brand, they only made these guitars under the Teisco brand name like between 64 and 69, and then they were sold, and they were a catalog guitar, so I'm not sure what they were called after that. But then they have been reproduced. There's a Canadian company called Eastwood that reproduced it. Unfortunately, this 4-in-2 headstock is a trademark. And now, if I was Eastwood, I would challenge that, because I can't see how you could say only we can have 4 machine heads here and 2 there. That's our look. That's, to me, insane. And if I was Eastwood, I'd say screw you, whoever that is. And because you can buy this from Eastwood, but the headstock is just a regular 6-in-line, or maybe it's 3-in-3. I can't remember. But to me, it ruins it. I mean, this shape, I've always found this to be just absolutely beautiful. The whole guitar is beautiful. I mean, I just love the way it's kind of carved here and here. And now I can't, obviously I can't play what the original sounded like. Is a little bit different than this. But I was surprised that when I got it all together, that it plays fairly well. And I've used it a couple times. And if you add a little bit of effects, you've got a perfectly decent guitar. Like, I've gigged with it, and it stays in tune fairly well. Now that with the new pickups, it doesn't feed back as much. You can even add some super fuzz and it's a great little guitar. The whammy bar does almost nothing. I mean, if you really reef on it, you can hear it, but it's like it's the subtlest of whammy. So there you have it. There's my Teisco, and one of these days I'd like to get it professionally refretted, because as I said, my fret job is pretty much the worst. And maybe take it all apart and get it properly painted. That'd probably be a good idea. But there you go. There's my Teisco. Unique, one of one in the world, and I hope it stays that way, because it's kind of my thing.